Did I really just see Fraudrin, aka Dreyfus, get wrecked in this chapter? Am I really? Oh, okay, I thought my eyes were deceiving me, like, holy crap. Fraudrin just got fucking wrecked. A 10 Commandment, Fraudrin got wrecked. We can argue and say he's not at maximum, but still, holy shit. But then we have to factor in the power, love drive in this chapter. We have to really factor that in. I mean, Fraudrin really wasn't aware of that power, and it's kind of ironic how Fraudrin got defeated in this chapter, because Fraudrin, you know, steals bodies, he stole Dreyfus's body. It's ironic how he lost to a person that kind of controlled the will of his own body, or his stolen body. It's very ironic. And I feel like that's just hinting at maybe a possible rematch in the future. But for now, what I want to talk about is how he got wrecked. Like, Fraudrin is one of the characters I've been looking forward to see him in action, because, I mean, he's one of the main characters that we have seen, like, since the beginning, almost, of Taizai, and I wanted to see more of him, to see what he can really demonstrate now that he's gotten serious, and he's went into, like, you know, his demon mode, kind of. He's going out and he's being himself, and to see now that he just got wrecked like he did, I need to reevaluate how I truly feel about him, because even though I know he got defeated because he was outsmarted, and it was just he didn't really think that person was that dangerous with their power, it makes me reconsider that maybe not all the commandments, even if they are extremely powerful, can just stand up to everyone. Like, this is something we really need to take from this chapter. Just because they're the 10 Commandments, and they have high power levels pretty much, and they're strong as fuck, it does not mean that they're undefeatable. That's kind of what this chapter shows. It shows us that even if they have an extremely high level of power over everybody else, it doesn't mean that they cannot be defeated. For instance, maybe another Holy Knot user will have this certain ability that can fuck you over, and that's kind of what happened to Fraudrin. So, definitely probably setting up for whatever we should expect from the future, from future fights of the 10 Commandments. But for now, let's talk about the inner struggle going on with Dreyfus and Fraudrin. So we get a little bit of clarification in this chapter towards the beginning that Dreyfus is not really gone, which we kind of expected. He's not gone, but he's kind of self-aware in some way. Dreyfus is there, and Fraudrin actually can communicate with Dreyfus, because he was having a middle of a conversation with Dreyfus, and you had it to where Fraudrin replied. We didn't get to actually see what Dreyfus said, but we can assume what he said because of what Fraudrin said back to him. He's like, oh, you don't want me to hurt nobody? You never change. I've been around you longer than you've been around with your wife. And so it just goes to show you that they can actually interact and talk with each other. So Dreyfus is well aware of what his body does and what Fraudrin does with his body, which is kind of fucked up in of itself. Like, yeah, definitely fucked up. But it's not just that. It seems like Dreyfus is able to resist somewhat, because we saw on Fraudrin's face, or Dreyfus's face, where the demon symbol kind of faded out just barely. It just barely faded out, but it shows you a sign of resistance. Dreyfus can resist Fraudrin to some extent. So this is definitely some way in the near future of how maybe Dreyfus is going to get freed from Fraudrin's grasp, where he can have his own body back. Definitely some setup for that. Now, next thing that I noticed the beginning part of this chapter set up, I don't know if it was supposed to be like that, if it was kind of foreshadowing towards that event, and I hope that I'm correct and incorrect at the exact same time, because it can definitely make a very fucked up situation in the future of Taizai. With the dialogue in the flashback of Gridimore and Dreyfus and Fraudrin and all that, when you saw it to where Fraudrin was talking to Dreyfus, he was remembering the past, like, oh yeah, don't you remember when we came to this village, you had your son here, we were here and all that, and then he looked at you and he's like, oh, I want to be a great holy knot like you. That makes me feel like the way Fraudrin said that, I mean, I don't think he meant it at that point, but I mean, it might happen in the future. I feel the way the dialogue was done is that maybe there will come a point in time to where Fraudrin will be kind of expelled from Dreyfus's body, but Gridimore will be around, and Fraudrin will go inside of his son and control Dreyfus's son. I felt like that's where the dialogue was trying to go, but I could be wrong. That's just a theory, and that doesn't mean that it's, you know, fact or correct or it is going to happen. But I feel like that's what the dialogue is trying to hint at. So, enough with that part right there. Let's move into, let's see, I guess the fight. I'll talk about the fight a little bit. So, from what we could see is this new ability that this Holy Knight uses is Love Drive. And it's a charming power. For instance, this girl can charm her fellow victims. Like, I don't know if it can only work on guys, maybe it can work on all genders, which it should. So, that would mean that if she wants to charm you with her Love Drive ability, that means you can't do shit. Like, she controls you. She controls your body because your body will unconsciously move to where you're like, I love you and all that, and you'll punch yourself if you're about to hurt her. So, it lets you know that this ability is very dangerous. It can even affect someone like Meliodas, most likely. I mean, we do know he loves Elizabeth. We know Meliodas loves her. And if he was to, you know, succumb to this type of ability, most likely he would also do some crazy shit. Like, he would probably do the exact same thing and be controlled by this love thing by this girl. And it goes to show you almost any character probably could be controlled by this. The only character I think that might be able to resist something like this might be Bon. I feel like that's kind of what this chapter was also implying, because it's very weird how behind the scenes of this chapter, it was actually a theme of love. Like, the power introduction was Love Drive, and it controls someone's body to where you fall in love with, you know, the user of this Love Drive, and then all of a sudden, after that, Bon appears, which we haven't seen him in a while, and I have a lot of questions about him, but it's very odd how we get this person that can control someone to make someone fall in love with her, and then Bon gets shown at the end. We do know he has this, like, unending love for a dead girl, Elaine, that he's trying to figure out a way for he can revive her. And it's very ironic how that entire theme played with Bon, because Bon is not someone to give up love on someone he already lost. Like, I don't think he would give up that love even if she was to use her Love Drive ability on him. It'd be interesting to see if she could have that ability work on Bon. But let's move on to that segment now of this chapter. So Bon makes an appearance, and I will say right now, first things first, if you know me by now, I am a Bon fanboy. He is best boy. I mean, Escanor, as I've said many times before, most likely he could possibly become the best boy of the series when we see him in present time, but we'll have to see how he is. But for now, Bon is my favorite character, and to see him finally getting the spotlight once again and reappearing in this ending part of the chapter, and then next week's chapter going to be revealing his past, like his birth, like, I guess his hometown where he was born and raised in, how he became a bandit. I mean, we're probably going to get to see why he went to Elaine in the first place. We'll probably find out about that information with next week's chapter, and I am very hyped to see that, because any information about Bon is definitely a good chapter for me, because I love his character and I love finding out more about him. And so yeah, the conclusion of the chapter turns us over into a Bon theme for the next couple weeks, and here's my questions right now. The last time we saw Bon was kind of locked up in the fairy forest, and he was kind of trapped down, and he was being fed to the tree. Like, that was the last we saw of Bon. But somehow he's walking around with Jericho. We missed something. We definitely missed something. So, I do hope Nakaba-sensei goes back to that and explains more of that, because there is a lot of questions I have about that ordeal with the fairy forest, because there's a lot of things I was questioning when we were over there many chapters ago, and it felt like it just got skipped. And I feel like the way it was skipped, it's probably going to be set up for something in the future, and it might be very vital later on. But for now, we just gotta wonder what really happened, and hopefully it does get revealed next week. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.